Hello everyone, Oregon Moto John. We're going to install this starting capacitor by Moto on the KTM 300. Last time I was up riding, it was acting a little odd. Didn't want to start. Headlight was having trouble staying on, so all signs of low voltage. So I went ahead and replaced my battery. I'll show you what I replaced that with. And I'm going to add this starting capacitor in just to safeguard me against future times that could happen. It would have been a real bummer to have trouble riding because of a low battery, so we're not being able to start the bike. And this doesn't have a kickstart, but with the capacitor you can still do a bump start, so that's why I'm installing it. Here's the old lithium battery that I pulled out of the bike. It's just what came OEM with the bike. I went ahead and installed this battery into the bike. I got this at Just Slavens Racing. It has more cold cranking amps. Due to the size limitations of that box on the 24 bikes, it's hard to get an upgraded battery by a lot, but there's the part number for the 300, 165 cold cranking amps. The old one was less than that by 20 or 30 cold cranking amps, I believe, or more. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also going to be more careful about putting on a battery tender, but I'm going to install this starting capacitor. So, oh, by the way, to change out the battery, I did happen to have the fuel tank off because I was doing my heated grip install. So I did remove the fuel tank, and then it was just a matter of pulling this out. This little thing is just rubber mounted on here, the starting solenoid. And then you remove this screw, and then this whole thing just lifts up, and then the battery comes actually out the end. So it was actually really easy. I didn't have to remove any of these wiring harnesses here or here. I just removed that screw, removed the tank, pulled that up, pulled the battery out, slid it in, and then that was that. So it's just a matter of taking off your positive terminal and putting the positive terminal on there. And then I did slip my boot so I can kind of slide that up and over, and then I'm going to put some electrical tape on top to kind of hold that where it needs to go. And then putting the negative terminal on here. I was going to mount this in my air box, and you certainly could. There's you know, you could mount it to this bar, or you could mount it back to the wiring harness back there. You see that wire? Or back in that corner over there, could tuck up in there. But you know, to me it looks like this is going to mount. I mean, there's this little hole for it here. There's a little hole for it there, or there's a little hole underneath here that I might tuck it in. So I'll show you where it ends up finding its home. Okay, that goes in there really nice. Just a little electrical tape over the positive end to hold the rubber boot on. Negative side on. I run the wires along here. Next to the battery, and then this, actually I just unplugged my relay switch there, or connector to the relays, and then it'll just nestle in under there. It's not going to jiggle around. It's actually nice and tight, and then I'll just plug this back in. But it would also fit here, or it actually nestled in really nicely right there. So, you know, put it where you want to. And there's what it looks like when it's all in. It's nestled underneath that connector. It doesn't impede the connector. It actually is a really clean install. I'd been waiting on putting this on because I wasn't sure where this was going to install, if I was going to have to put it in my airbox or what have you. But yeah, and I pulled the cover off, and it looks like my air filter has this filter skins on it, but probably wouldn't hurt to throw a new air filter on there, so make sure you're checking your air filter. Another little tip is when I put this cover back on, I'm going to make sure that I put grease on these little tabs here so it's easier to get, and on these pins here so it's easier to get off next time I remove it. So just another little tip. All right, well, that can make your bike easier to start, having that capacitor if you have a dead battery. Definitely a good thing to install. I'll put links to the capacitor at the website. I'll do my best to find this battery on Just Slavens' website as well. You don't need to do the battery. This is just the capacitor install. But if you want some cold cranking amps, upgraded cold cranking amps, that would be the thing to do. The new 2024 bikes and on, it's nice how this is easy to get at, but You know, it makes it hard to upgrade the battery without modifying that box. It'd be a bummer to be out riding, and you don't want to be that guy where, you know, you're fiddling with your bike, you're trying to get it to start, and I was almost that guy last time we went riding. It was close. I'd hit the starter. I warmed up the battery by hitting the starter a few times, and then you could hear the solenoid kind of going click, 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 and it wouldn't turn over the bike, and so then I'd wait a little bit, hit starter again, the bike would fire and then die. So anyway, it was close. Make sure your battery is charged in a charged state, and the starting capacitor, I think, could be a real asset to make it easier to start. And like I said, this doesn't have a kickstart, but I could certainly bump start it, pop it in second or third gear, find a hill, or get a push, and you know, that would work. All right, hope this is useful for someone. Keep riding and go out there and enjoy the ride. So why do you need a capacitor? It basically, if you had a battery that was, you know, a little low in voltage, a capacitor can take what voltage is there and kind of store it up. So when you give it that initial hit and there's a flow of current out of the capacitor, or it discharges and it sends all that current into the system. So, you know, in a low voltage situation, that could definitely help start your bike. So who could use that capacitor? Anybody that has a bike with a battery and you want a little extra hit when you're trying to start it if the battery's low. So I put one on my KTM 300. I plan on putting one on my HUSKY FE350S or a KTM 350, a 500, a 690. My guess is it's most effective on smaller displacement engines because the capacitor doesn't hold a whole lot. I could probably even put one on my 300 if I wanted to, but I think for right now I'm going to put it on kind of my more, you know, into my KTM and my Husky. A capacitor also smooths out the voltage when your battery fails. The capacitor will smooth out your voltage so that your bike starts. These bikes, the battery helps condition the voltage. So if your battery fails, your voltage jumps up and down, and you could pull up behind a truck and it won't start right. So the capacitor will help condition the voltage even with a low battery, and so that your bike will run. So you could bump start it, or potentially use a kickstart or even the starter if it can store up enough juice to get that initial burst to start your bike. So capacitor for any 2-stroke, 4-stroke bike with a battery from probably 2012 on, KTM or Husky, gas, definitely would be a good thing to put on your bike. So, you know, we all want to get up there and ride. We don't want to be trying to ride. We want to get up there and ride and not be stuck. And I was almost in that situation last time I rode. So, yeah, definitely a good thing to have. Just be careful when you install it or uninstall it that you keep the positive to positive and negative to negative.